Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights. This is a Q&A that came after our remarks. Rich and I stayed at the podium, and there was a long line of people with two different microphones lined up to ask thoughtful questions. The intersection of baseball cards and baseball history and sabermetrics, they're really pretty well linked in a good way. Rich and I had fun with that, answering the questions. Thanks Paul Rogers and Jason Schwartz for setting it up. Thanks sponsors, Topps, Panini, Upper Deck, Heritage Auctions, Huggins Scott Auctions, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Burbank Sports Cards, ComC.com, and Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication. So lots of interesting questions, and here it is.
I'm a Bowling Green graduate, and I wore my BG shirt just for Dr. Beckett. Obviously, I was a reader of Beckett in the 80s. Information didn't travel as fast then. How difficult was it to keep things updated and moving from month to month? I know that the card market at the time fluctuated wildly.
In the old days, it was hard to get the information, to get the data, but easy to synthesize it. Now, it's easy to get the data because everything's so digital and hard to synthesize it. It's always been a difficult job to do price guides. And again, I took it as far as I could go by myself, and then I started adding talented people. Fortunately, we grew at a rate that allowed us to serve the market. But it was a challenge. Rich said we had 183 people. That was our peak. And every one of them was busy. They weren't sitting around. We had 20 people traveling the country doing price research. I'm not getting a nightmare, but I'm retired, and I'm not tired anymore.
Tell us about how those pictures we see on the card happen. Is it always been something the league or the teams are happy to provide to Fleer and Donruss and Topps? Or is it something where it's a very formal thing that the teams are contractually obligated to take pictures appropriate for cards and provide them, and there's no money changed hands, or does Topps take the pictures? I'm real curious about how a baseball card begins.
The best man at my wedding takes photos that are used on baseball cards nowadays. And it's always been that way, except Topps had professional photographers since they were based in New York. If you ever look at a lot of the old Topps cards, you see the backgrounds are Yankee Stadium, Ebbets Field, Polo Grounds, Shea Stadium, because why spend extra money? Everybody's got to come into New York anyway. So the photos were always taken by people who were getting paid for them. And then nowadays you pay, or Topps has a deal, I think, with Getty Images too. You find ways to use photos. In fact, one of our mutual friends, Mike Kramer, who founded Pacific Trading Cards, one of his hidden secrets in keeping down costs, he would go to NFL games up and down the West Coast. He took photos. So it's always been that way, and that's how they get done, by professional photographers, and now the manufacturers choose which photos they want to use.
Mike Ehrenstein just did a wonderful job of that, but he did not have the problem you've also raised of the approvals of leagues and players associations. And hockey, I think, is pretty aggressive in terms of making sure you're not showing a bunch of bloody sweaters and fighting, but the pictures have to be approved.
As a collector growing up, I had the same horrible feeling as everybody else did. They opened up a pack of 10 cards, and there it was, the checklist. So here's a serious question. A lot of us just threw those things away. So they got to be the rarest cards around. They may be extinct. They may be like the dodo bird of baseball cards. Do checklists, because of their rarity, ever become valuable?
Some of them are valuable,
Short
actually.
answer, yes, for
You
sure.
get the ones from the 50s. In fact, they're more valuable than the Pace Commons for that very reason. People either threw them away or they were marked. They actually are more valuable.
My question is on card grading. This has become a lot bigger issue as people buy more things online. Hopefully it's the way to ascertain whether you're getting a legitimate card or whatever. The question I have, though, is the different grading companies. There are what I consider three major grading companies, and I wonder if they all use the same grading standards. And do those standards ever change? For instance, one of the companies doesn't seem to appreciate eye appeal, if you want to call it that. Will eye appeal become a bigger issue rather than surface creases on the back of the card or something like that?
When we got started with Beckett Grading Services, we tried to be true to what the hobby understood in terms of mint, near mint, excellent, very good, all the different adjectives that have been long-standing. But the application of those by different companies and the interpretations, they're not in lockstep. They're independent, separate companies. The marketplace, the secondary market, makes adjustments based on perception that certain grading companies are more harsh on centering or corners or edges or surface. So I think most people gravitate toward one of the grading companies to say, this is one that I'm comfortable with. There have been other ones coming in, and again, they're going to have difficulty making headway when there are established entities that have a track record unless they're in step with what the standards are. But it's a very unregulated industry in terms of grading. What's to stop a new company from coming out and slabbing the cards and everything's a 10? Because they just say eye appeal. Looks great to me. From a distance, all cards look great. But if you put them under a microscope, you can see the imperfections. So eye appeal is very difficult to quantify. It's become a kind of not a tiebreaker, but an important determination of which card I'm going to buy. There are people that actually would rather buy a lower technical grade that has better eye appeal, and they can get a better deal on it.
I had a price guide probably circa 74 to 76. The author's name was Burt Sugar, the famous boxing historian and Ring magazine guy. Was that the first somewhat comprehensive price guide that came out, or was there one before that?
I would not say comprehensive price guide. What he did, not an anthology, but he had lots of co-editors that he put together. And so there's great information in there, a lot of checklists, some pricing information. It was a little choppy, but it was a great contribution at the time. Same advice to everybody is to collect what you love. But frequently with social media, it's not collect what you love, it's collect what your friends love or collect what everybody else is collecting. But if you can get back to some connection that you have a spot in your heart for something, then go for it.
I don't know how many, but thousands of baseball cards from the 60s, 70s, 80s, maybe a few in the 90s. What's the best way I could put a value on those cards? Not that I'm trying to sell all of them, but my wife says we have too many baseball cards, that we need to pare it down a little bit. What's the best way you guys would recommend that I get a value of my Pete Rose cards or Steve Garvey or whoever you want to name?
Yeah, just invite a dealer to come over, look at what you have, and make you an offer.
Okay.
The next day, invite a completely different dealer to come over and make an offer. Do not tell the first offer was. The third day, ask another dealer to come over. Those three offers, take the largest offer you got from the three and double it. And that might be what your cards are worth.
Thank you.
As someone who's enjoyed collecting sport cards, whether it was baseball, football, hockey, basketball, I feel like it's grown a lot in the past 3 years.
COVID stopped the sports, collecting was the only game in town. We're still riding that wave a little bit. It peaked, but there's been a residual ripple from that that's significant. You've got Fanatics coming into it, which is a huge entity that even though they don't have the licenses, they're doing so much with these other things. They're making big splashes, including last weekend in New York City. So that's marketing muscle. Their licenses include
participation by the players' associations. So they have unprecedented cooperation. Tom Brady has a chain of stores now that he's a part owner. So we're getting more publicity over the last few years, and Fanatics has said they want to 10x the industry.
When you were younger, who were the friends that you traded cards with, collected cards with, were close with, and what made the difference that puts you here now hosting this panel versus where they might be these days?
I stayed with it. And basically, all my friends collected cards. I don't remember any friends that didn't collect cards. I had a friend that decided to collect comic books. And it wasn't that we weren't friends, but I got closer with the guys that loved baseball. And we played baseball every day in the summer. We went down to the field. So it's not just the collecting. It's, like Rich is saying, the intertwined kind of thing.
Paul Skeens in his first 2 major league seasons has over 7,000 one-of-one cards already. So one-of-ones make it difficult to collect your favorite player. Where do you see the trend of them going?
People think the opposite. That many one-of-ones means maybe I can get one. That's the allure of breaks. You get in a break, it's a possibility. If there's one-of-ones in there, I might get one. I'm not going to pay retail for it. I might get it sight unseen by a lottery type approach. With 7,000, that's music to some people's ears, not to the person that's trying to hoard all the Paul Skeens cards, because you won't be able to do it.
I don't know about you, but I'm waiting for the first signed one-in-one card combined of Paul and Livy.
How much interaction do you guys have with the card companies when you're putting together the guides, etc.?
Basically, we were in a situation back in the day where we had constant communication with the card companies. But what you might think is that they were giving us a lot of information. Actually, we were giving them information, because the guy that mentioned the checklist cards, some of their checklist cards are incorrect. So we were letting them know we were digging deeper than they were after the fact. But we had very cordial relations with them.
People make mistakes. And one thing to remember, a lot of times they're not doing it deliberately. You're producing so many cards. It's not fraud. It's not anything. It's just human error. And it's hard to do. We help the people, but they helped us too. And we're getting checklists from the card companies. And sometimes we have to ask them, what are you doing with this? What is this we don't have? How come we haven't seen this? I know when I was at Beckett, our baseball price guide editor was Grant Sandground. The card companies hated getting his emails because he would pre-research the product and say, I have these 15 questions. And they used to maybe have answers for 10 of them. And the rest we'd have to figure out ourselves.
What interactions or relationships did you have back in the day with, like, Renata, Galasso?
I'm one of the few people, I think, Renata Galasso, who was a big name. Probably that would be the 80s. She had a famous, infamous husband, who was Bill Hungash, who was a former Yankee bat boy. But I had some dealings with Renata Galasso. She put out a publication, had sets they put out, which were nice, but it was mainly through her husband. And they got really big. And I got some great deals from her. I guess I can say this. She didn't know that much about cards. She had a table at a show, and I said, what are the prices of these? And she gave me the prices. They were like written down, and they were the prices. And I said, I'll take them. And this was before I was doing price guides and all that, but I just thought she was not knowledgeable, but she was a marketing phenomenon. So they got really big really fast. And I don't know what happened.
Well, they got divorced.
They got divorced. I know that.
One thing to remember, as Jim says, it's a business decision to have Renata Galasso as a Fordham student paying her way through college with baseball cards. It's a great story.
Women-owned business.
A women-owned business.
But he was the guy.
But he was the guy, yes.
And those sets were, I think, enduring. They were ahead of their time. They were reminiscent of TCMA old-timers and all that. But, yeah, she made a big splash for 10 years or whatever that was. And she was a real person, but she was not seen in public very often.
Yeah.
She was young.
As I said, she was going to Fordham.